There is a misconception in the world that to be strong means to suppress emotion, to become numb, or to cut off your feelings altogether. People often confuse emotional detachment with emotional coldness, but the truth is far more elegant, far more empowering. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of strength. It is not the rejection of emotion. It is the understanding of it, the conscious mastery of how we choose to respond. Life will always present us with storms. People will betray us, situations will shake us, and dreams will sometimes fall apart. These things are not avoidable. But how we respond, that is where our true power lies. Because reaction is instinctive, but response is intentional. One is chaotic, the other strategic. There is a critical moment between stimulus and response as a silent space, often no longer than a breath, and in that space lies our entire freedom. That moment is where power is built. That moment is where the emotionally intelligent reside. You cannot avoid pain. You cannot stop others from trying to trigger you, hurt you, or disappoint you. But you can build such mastery within yourself that you no longer respond in the way they expect. You no longer hand your peace over like a gift to people who haven't earned it. The one who can remain calm in a world that screams wins. The one who can stand still in a moment of chaos without giving in to impulse holds more control than the loudest voice in the room. That's emotional detachment. That's the beauty of being aware of your own emotional currents, yet not letting them carry you away. Have you ever seen a river during a storm? The surface is wild, chaotic, aggressive. But dive deep, go beneath the surface, and you'll find stillness. Stillness does not mean the river isn't moving. It means it's moving with purpose. That's who you must become. The storm may rage above you, but within you hold a stillness so deep that no chaos can drown it. We often confuse reacting quickly with acting powerfully, but knee-jerk reactions rarely come from our highest self. They come from pain, from fear, from ego. Someone insults you, and before your brain has caught up, your mouth fires back. Someone doubts you, and instead of calmly rising to the challenge, you rush to prove them wrong, not out of self-belief, but out of insecurity. This is not strength. This is bondage to your emotions, to your wounds, to your past. Emotional detachment teaches us to pause, to witness, to analyze without judgment. You feel anger rising. Good. Feel it, but don't become it. Let it pass through you like wind through a field. Notice it. Name it. And then decide, is this the time to act? Is this the moment to speak? Is this even my burden to carry? Mastery lies in that pause, in that moment where the old you would have exploded, but the new you observes instead. You are not your emotion. You are not your reaction. You are the awareness behind it all. Emotions are powerful messengers, but they are not always wise leaders. Let them knock at your door, but never let them write your destiny. Emotional detachment gives you that power, the power to choose your direction rather than being dragged through life by every trigger that comes your way. Think about how many opportunities have been destroyed by a single outburst. How many relationships fractured, deals broken, dreams delayed, simply because someone couldn't control their response? Now think of the strength it takes to stand in the fire and remain composed. That is not weakness. That is elite self-mastery. That is the kind of power that cannot be faked. It's the kind that earns respect without demanding it. And the truth is, this kind of power is cultivated, not gifted. You don't wake up with it one day. It is forged in silence. It is built in moments where your ego screams, raked, but your soul whispers, observe. It grows when you choose silence over drama, when you choose patience over proving your point, when you choose to walk away not because you're weak, but because peace is your priority. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more about your peace than about being right. It means you understand that not every action deserves your reaction, that not every opinion deserves your energy, that some things are better left unanswered, not because you don't have a reply, but because your growth no longer allows you to descend into battles beneath you. In this journey of life, emotions will rise. You will feel pain. You will feel anger, fear, doubt, disappointment. That's okay. You are human, but your emotions should never own you. They are guides, not rulers. You must learn to thank them, learn from them, and let them pass. When you master this, when you can feel deeply but respond wisely, you become unstoppable. Imagine walking into a room where people are gossiping about you. Imagine hearing your name twisted in lies. The old you might have charged in, defended yourself, shouted, cried, tried to control the narrative. But the new you, the emotionally detached you, simply smiles, lets it pass, and keeps walking. Because you know your energy is too precious to be spent explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. That is strength, that is power, and that is peace. There will come a time when someone will test you. They'll try to push your buttons, hoping to provoke a reaction. But when you've trained yourself, when you've embraced emotional detachment, you won't give them what they're looking for. You'll stay grounded, focused, strategic. You'll move like a king or a queen across the board of life, deliberate, unshaken, purposeful. In a world full of noise, be the quiet storm. In a world full of chaos, be the calm. In a world full of overreaction, be the thoughtful pause. That is how you lead. That is how you win. That is how you rise, not by shouting louder, but by mastering the silence within. Let them underestimate you. Let them misread your stillness for weakness. Let them laugh, provoke question. You just keep walking. Let your results speak. Let your grace confuse them. Let your peace intimidate them. Because the truth is, the more emotionally detached you become, the more dangerous you are, not in a destructive way, but in a powerful one. You become unshakable. You become someone who can no longer be manipulated through guilt, fear, or pressure. You become someone who can navigate life with focus, with clarity, with strategy. And you begin to attract peace. You begin to repel drama. You begin to walk with a presence that demands nothing but commands everything. Because people can feel it. Your discipline, Your emotional clarity, your inner control, it radiates. So if you are in a storm right now, if life is loud, messy, painful, don't fight it emotionally. Observe, learn, pause, breathe, then move. Move with purpose, move with grace, move with intelligence. Every storm passes, but only those who detach emotionally will emerge from it stronger, wiser, and ready for the next level. Remember, the goal is not to feel nothing. It is to feel everything and still choose your response. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are powerful when you refuse to let those feelings control your destiny. True strength lies not in how loudly you speak, but in how quietly you stand when the world tries to shake you. And when you master that, nothing can break you. Detach emotionally, move strategically, and watch your life transform. There are moments in life where silence speaks louder than screams, where calmness carries more weight than chaos, and where discipline is more dangerous than rage. In a world where everyone is rushing to be heard, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose to stay quiet, observe, and move with intention. Because not every battle requires your voice, some require your vision. Not every challenge deserves your emotion, some demand your strategy. We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not reacting loudly, we're not strong. That if we're not fighting openly, we're somehow losing. But that's a lie. The truth is, some of the greatest victories in life are earned behind closed doors, in moments of solitude, in the silence of discipline. The strongest warriors are not always the ones who fight the loudest, but the ones who know exactly when to strike and when not to. There's a kind of power and restraint that few people understand. Anyone can react. Anyone can explode. But it takes a master to hold their fire, to study the game, to wait for the perfect moment to move. That is not cowardice. That is control. And control is the mark of someone who refuses to be played. We are emotional beings. That's natural. We feel pain, betrayal, disrespect, and disappointment. And in those moments, it's easy to let our emotions lead us, to fight back, to defend, to prove. But reacting emotionally to every offense, every obstacle, every challenge, that's how we lose focus. That's how we give our power away to things that don't deserve it. The loudest emotion often wins the moment, but it rarely wins the war. Strategic people don't move based on how they feel. They move based on what they see, what they know, and what they're building. They don't react to every bark. They don't lower themselves to every insult. They don't engage with every distraction because they know they're playing a bigger game, one that most people won't even understand until it's over. The world we live in today rewards noise. It celebrates the loudest voice in the room, the fastest reaction, the biggest show. But real power doesn't need an audience. Real power is quiet. It moves like water, flowing around obstacles, patient and persistent, unstoppable in its course. When you operate with emotional intelligence and strategic patience, you become untouchable, not because nothing affects you, but because nothing controls you. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're not responding because you're weak. Let them misread your silence for surrender. That's part of the plan. Because while they're busy watching your words, you're building your next move. While they're loud, you're listening. While they're distracted, you're focused. That is the art of silent power. That is how battles are won before they even begin. There's a story behind every success that no one sees. The lonely nights, the silent sacrifices, the plans crafted in the dark, away from applause, away from validation. That's where champions are made. That's where resilience is born. Because when you stop needing the world to notice you and you start focusing solely on the mission, you unlock a level of peace and purpose that no noise can touch. The long game is not glamorous, it's not loud, it doesn't give instant rewards. It demands discipline. It demands endurance. But it also delivers legacy. While others are chasing applause, you're building impact. While others are fighting battles that don't matter, you're conserving your strength for the ones that do. That's not just smart, that's strategic wisdom. Every time you choose silence over drama, you win. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you gain ground. Every time you choose patience over proving yourself, you rise. Because your life is not a race to convince others of your worth. It's a mission to fulfill your purpose. And that mission requires focus, clarity, and unshakable resolve. Think about a grandmaster in chess. Do they rush their moves? Do they slam their pieces on the board, shouting with each play? No, they're calm, focused. They think 5, 10, 15 steps ahead. Every move is calculated. Every sacrifice has purpose. Every silence holds power. That's who you need to become. A grandmaster in your own life, not reacting to every move around you, but creating your own sequence with vision, with clarity, with strategy. The people who try to draw you into emotional battles aren't thinking about your future. They're trying to shake your foundation. But you must rise above. You must ask yourself, is this battle even worth my energy? Will this argument help me build what I'm here to build? Will this fight move me forward or pull me down? Because if it doesn't serve your vision, it's a distraction. And distractions are how dreams die. Sometimes the best thing you can do is smile, nod, and walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You've learned that every time you engage with things beneath your purpose, you delay your progress. And you've come too far, sacrificed too much to let momentary emotions steal permanent progress. So build in silence, move in silence, win in silence. Let your results speak volumes. Let your actions echo louder than your emotions ever could. People may not see your preparation, but they'll see your elevation. They may not understand your silence, but they'll feel your impact. That's the beauty of playing the long game. You don't need to rush. You don't need to explain. You just need to keep moving forward one silent, strategic step at a time. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about channeling them into purpose rather than pouring them into chaos. When you feel anger, use it to fuel your focus. When you feel pain, turn it into purpose. When you feel the urge to react, pause and plan. That's how warriors move. That's how visionaries lead. You are not here to fight every battle. You are here to win the war of your own becoming. And that war will not be won through impulsive reactions. It will be won through clarity, through character, through the quiet strength of someone who knows where they're going and refuses to be distracted by noise. Don't try to convince the world who you are. Show them, not with your words, but with your work. Not with your emotions, but with your results. Let them doubt. Let them question. Let them talk. You stay focused, you stay disciplined, you stay strategic. Because at the end of the day, the one who screams the loudest is not the one who wins. It's the one who stays the calmest, the clearest, and the most committed to the long game. So the next time someone tries to pull you into an emotional storm, remember who you are. Remember your mission. Remember that your energy is sacred. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Your success, your peace, your growth, that's your proof. Let your silence be the loudest thing in the room. There will be days when you're tempted to fight battles that don't matter, just to feel something, just to respond. But breathe, center yourself. Choose clarity. Choose growth. Choose the quiet path that leads to real, lasting power. Because in the end, the most dangerous person in the room is not the one who yells. It's the one who moves with calm, silent confidence. The one who smiles while they work. The one who speaks only when necessary. The one who knows exactly where they're going and refuses to be shaken. Be that person. Master your emotions. Protect your focus. Move with purpose. Because not every battle is meant to be fought emotionally. Some are won through quiet strategy. And the long game always belongs to those who are willing to move in silence while the rest of the world makes noise. There is something profoundly liberating about the moment you stop letting your emotions dictate your direction. It's not that emotions are wrong or that you should feel ashamed for having them. On the contrary, emotions are part of what makes us human. They allow us to connect, to dream, to hope, to love. But when emotions lead and logic follows, chaos is often the result. The truth is, the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, who to become, where to go, what to leave behind, should never be made from the depths of emotional chaos. Have you ever found yourself looking back on a decision you made in anger or fear or desperation and thinking, I wish I'd taken a moment to breathe? You're not alone. Emotion, when left unfiltered, can cloud the clearest mind, distort the simplest truth, and drag you into battles that aren't even yours to fight. But when you remove emotion from the equation, when you take a step back and view the situation not with a storming heart, but with steady eyes, everything begins to change. You begin to see not just what's happening, but why. Not just who they are, but who you are becoming. That kind of clarity is rare. It's powerful and it's transformative. Think of a painter standing too close to the canvas. All they can see are the brushstrokes, the texture, the lines. But when they step back, the full picture comes into view. The colors blend. The image sharpens. The meaning emerges. That is what emotional detachment allows you to do in life. It gives you the perspective to see the full picture, not just the piece that's in front of you right now. In the heat of the moment, everything feels bigger. Every word feels heavier. Every glance, every silence, every rejection feels like a mountain. But emotions magnify things. They amplify uncertainty. They distort proportions. What feels unbearable in the moment often becomes laughable with time. And what seems permanent when you're emotional often proves temporary once you've calmed. That's why you must be careful with the decisions you make when emotions are high, because those decisions can build bridges or burn them. When you make choices based on anger, you often regret the words you spoke. When you make choices based on fear, you often miss out on opportunities that could have changed your life. When you make choices based on sadness, you risk giving up on things that still have a chance to bloom. But when you choose clarity, when you pause, breathe, and detach long enough to see the truth, you don't just make a decision. You make a shift. You move with wisdom. You protect your peace. Detachment isn't cold. That's one of the greatest lies ever told. Detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self-awareness. It's choosing to love yourself enough to not let every situation consume you. It's learning to love others without allowing them to control your inner world. It's the art of being involved, but not entangled, connected, but not imprisoned. And that kind of detachment, that kind of clarity, doesn't come from weakness. It comes from strength. It takes strength to feel pain and not let it poison your perspective. It takes strength to witness chaos and not let it become your reality. It takes strength to hear criticism and not let it shatter your confidence. Clarity is not given. It's earned through patience, through self-discipline, and through the quiet courage to observe rather than react. You see, most people don't truly see what's happening around them because they're too busy reacting. Their emotions become filters blurring reality. Someone disagrees with them. They feel disrespected. Someone pulls away. They feel abandoned. Someone criticizes them. They feel attacked. But the truth is, most things in life aren't about us. Most things aren't personal. People act from their own pain, their own fears, their own stories. And when you detach, you begin to see that. You begin to see that their storm is not your burden, that their silence doesn't mean you're unworthy, that their actions are often reflections of their own battles, not yours. Detachment allows you to stop internalizing things that don't belong to you. It frees you from carrying weights you were never meant to hold. It teaches you to observe your thoughts instead of becoming them, to listen to your emotions instead of being ruled by them, to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with impulse. Imagine how different your life would be if you simply paused, if you just allowed a moment of stillness between emotion and action. How many arguments would you avoid? How many regrets would you erase? How much energy would you save? That pause, that breath is everything. It's in that moment that you reclaim your power. Because power doesn't come from control over others. It comes from control over yourself. And when you are no longer a slave to your emotions, you become the master of your life. When you detach emotionally, you begin to notice the patterns. You start seeing how the same situations repeat, how the same types of people show up in different forms. You start realizing which battles are recurring because of your own emotional reactivity. And once you see the pattern, you have the power to break it. That's how transformation begins, not with others changing, but with you seeing clearly enough to change yourself. This is how leaders are made. This is how empires are built, not with frantic emotion, but with focused strategy. The most powerful people in history were not the loudest or the most emotional. They were the ones who could look at the board of life, see every piece, every player, every pattern, and move accordingly. They understood that strategy beats emotion every time. That patience outlasts rage. That vision outruns impulse. Your life is not a series of isolated events. It's a story, and every chapter is connected. When you make choices in emotion, you often tear out pages that could have completed your story. But when you choose clarity, you start writing with purpose. You begin crafting a narrative of growth, of strength, of conscious evolution. Some people will never understand why you don't react anymore, why you don't fight every battle, why you don't respond to every insult. And that's okay. Let them misunderstand you. Let them think you become distant, colder, indifferent, because they don't see the truth. They don't see that you're not disconnected from life. You're deeply connected to yourself. And in that connection, you've discovered something sacred. Peace. Peace is not passive. It is powerful. It is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of clarity. And clarity only comes when you step back far enough to see the whole picture. You'll realize not every loss was a defeat. Not every ending was a tragedy. Some were redirection. Some were awakening. Some were necessary for your transformation. And that's what life is: constant unfolding, a constant invitation to rise, to see, to grow. And the only way you can rise is if you stop letting your emotions pull you down every time the world pushes a button. This is not about becoming numb. It's about becoming wise. Feel everything. Let the emotion rise. Let it speak, but then let it go. Don't build your life on temporary waves. Build it on steady ground. Build it on values, on vision, on clarity. Because when you strip away the noise, when you calm the waters, the truth becomes visible. And the truth will always set you free. So pause. Step back, detach, and watch how life begins to reveal itself in ways you never imagined. Watch how you begin to move differently, not out of fear, but out of understanding, not out of ego, but out of purpose, not out of reaction, but out of wisdom. Because when you remove your emotions from the equation, you don't lose your humanity. You discover your highest self. And from that place, every decision becomes a doorway to the life you were always meant to live. There is a quiet battle that takes place inside each of us, a constant tug of war between the heart and the mind. The heart, full of passion and emotion, beats wildly in moments of love, loss, hope, and fear. The mind, cool and calculated, waits patiently for clarity, for facts, for direction. But the most successful, the most grounded, and the most fulfilled among us are not those who silence either one, but those who learn how to let their heart feel deeply while allowing their mind to lead wisely. Life is full of moments that stir your soul. A betrayal can break your spirit. A dream can ignite your passion. A disappointment can flood your being with doubt. And in those moments, your heart cries out. It wants to take the wheel. It wants to turn back, lash out, give up, or dive in without thinking. And it's easy to obey because emotions are powerful. They speak in the language of urgency. They demand attention. They flood your senses. But emotions, for all their beauty and intensity, are only part of the truth. Emotions are not permanent. They are guests. They visit with a message, a lesson, a signal, a reminder, and then they pass. They are not meant to own you. They are meant to teach you. But when you allow emotions to drive your decisions, you risk giving short-term feelings permanent control over long-term outcomes. That's the danger. That's where chaos begins. Have you ever spoken out of anger and then regretted the moment the words left your lips? Have you ever chased someone you should have released simply because your heart couldn't stand the silence? Have you ever quit too soon because your fear felt louder than your potential? If you have, welcome to being human. But it's in those moments that we're reminded, let your heart feel, but let your mind lead. Your heart is the compass. It tells you what matters. It tells you what moves you, what touches you, what sets your soul on fire. It is the reason you love, the reason you try, the reason you care. But the mind is the map. It tells you how to get there. It reminds you of the terrain, the risks, the tools you'll need. Without the heart, life would be empty. Without the mind, life would be lost. You need both, but they must play their roles correctly. There is wisdom in allowing your heart to whisper, but your strategy to speak. Because when emotions rise, wisdom often waits. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It speaks in stillness. And the only way to hear it is to quiet the chaos inside. That takes discipline. That takes awareness. That takes the courage to pause, even when every part of you wants to act. Sometimes you will feel everything all at once. The sadness, the joy, the fear, the hope. It will feel like your chest can't hold it all. And in that moment, remember, you are not your emotions. You're the observer. You are the one who chooses what to do next. Let the wave come. Let it crash if it must, but then let it settle. And only then choose your next move. That is power. That is peace. That is mastery. Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing what you feel. It's about managing how you respond. It's about recognizing that while your feelings are valid, not all of them are wise leaders. Some emotions come from wounds, some from ego, some from fear disguised as instinct. That's why your mind must lead, not because it's better, but because it sees the path that emotion often hides. Think of the greatest decisions in your life, the ones that truly shaped your destiny. They likely involved emotion, yes, but they were carried by clarity. You might have felt deeply, but you acted with direction. That's the balance. The heart may point to the dream, but the mind builds the steps to reach it. To feel deeply is a gift. It means you're alive. It means you care. It means you are connected to something bigger than yourself. But to be ruled by feeling is to live on shifting sands. You'll be up one moment, down the next, chasing approval today, running from rejection tomorrow. And all the while, your purpose waits steady, silent, unmoved. Purpose doesn't shout. It doesn't pull you with emotion. It calls you with consistency. And if you're too busy chasing feelings, you'll miss that calling. That's why the greatest transformation begins when you start honoring your emotions, but not obeying them blindly. You may feel like giving up, but your mind knows this is just a storm. You may feel like you're not enough, but your mind knows the evidence of all you've overcome. You may feel like running back to what's familiar, but your mind knows you left for a reason. Let your heart feel the sadness, the fear, the longing. But let your mind decide the next step. Some people will tell you to follow your heart, and there is truth in that because your heart knows your deepest desires. But the heart alone can't calculate the price, the time, the pain, the consequences. That's what the mind is for. The heart dreams, the mind designs. Together, they create a life worth living. There will be times when you'll want to say something you shouldn't. Times when walking away will feel like a betrayal of your emotions. Times when staying will feel like love, even when it's really self-abandonment. And in those times, ask yourself, is this my heart speaking or my history? Is this wisdom or just old wounds crying out? Because when you lead with emotion, you often repeat cycles. But when you lead with clarity, you break them. You don't need to respond to every feeling. You don't need to answer every impulse. You don't need to fight every emotional war. Let the heart speak. Let it tell its story. But let the mind decide what the next chapter will be. This doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you become grounded, present, aware. It means you stop letting temporary emotions dictate permanent directions. It means you stop letting fear disguise itself as intuition. It means you develop the maturity to sit with your feelings, honor them, and still move in alignment with your highest self. The strongest people you know are not those who never feel. They are the ones who feel everything and still stay focused. They are the ones who cry in private and lead in public. The ones who love deeply but never lose themselves. The ones who are broken but never bitter. Because they've learned that the heart is sacred, but the mind is sovereign. You were never meant to live your life in reaction to every emotion. You were meant to create a life from a place of deep, powerful intention. That intention comes when the heart and mind work together, when feeling and thinking are balanced, not battling. So when the world tries to shake you, when the pressure builds, when your emotions rise like a flood, breathe. Pause. Listen to your heart. It has something to say. But let your mind lead. It knows the way. Let your tears fall if they must. Let your chest ache if it needs to. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. But once the wave has passed, rise. Stand with your spine straight, your spirit intact, and your mind clear, because that is the version of you that builds the future. That is the version of you that inspires others. That is the version of you that cannot be moved by the storms of life. Feel, yes, always feel, but lead yourself with strategy, move with intelligence, decide with vision. That is how you honor both your heart and your destiny, because when your heart whispers and your strategy speaks, you become unstoppable. In a world where noise reigns and chaos often takes center stage, we've been led to believe that power is loud, that the strongest one is the one who speaks first, reacts fast, and dominates every moment. But real power doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to be seen to be known. True power is calm, unbothered, quietly certain. And the calmest one in the room, that person always holds the most power. It takes no skill to react. Anyone can lash out when they're provoked. Anyone can raise their voice, lose their temper, or throw punches in the air. But it takes a deep level of inner mastery to stand still in the storm, to breathe through the tension, to respond when others react, to wait when everyone else rushes. That's not weakness. That's elite discipline. We live in a society that equates silence with passivity and composure with indifference. But those who understand power at its core know that control isn't in the volume of your voice, but in the strength of your presence. It's the quiet one in the corner, listening when others argue, analyzing when others explode, who sees what no one else sees. And when the time comes to move, their move is deliberate, sharp, final. Chaos is a test. It will push every button you have. It will poke at your insecurities, press on your wounds, and provoke your pride. It will beg you to react, to prove yourself, to defend your worth, to match its noise with more noise. But chaos is a trap, and those who fall into it rarely come out clean. They lose their peace, their focus, and often their direction. But those who remain grounded amidst the chaos, they rise, they conquer, not by force, but by foresight. Calm is not the absence of emotion, it's the command of it. It's the discipline to feel without becoming consumed. It's the strength to process your thoughts before they become actions. When you master calm, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because no one can provoke you, distract you, or manipulate you. You become rooted, focused, purpose-driven. And in a world that wants to pull you in 1,000 directions, that focus becomes your greatest weapon. Consider the most effective leaders in history. The greatest minds, the most respected individuals. They weren't the ones throwing tantrums or chasing attention. They were calculated. Composed, they knew when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to observe. They didn't waste energy on what didn't serve them. They saved their strength for what mattered most. You see, emotional detachment isn't the absence of care. It's the presence of clarity. It's choosing to not be controlled by every external force. It's understanding that your peace is not up for grabs, that your response is your power. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to correct every opinion or fight every battle. When you are calm, you choose your battles wisely. You move like water, flowing around obstacles, never fighting what can be outmaneuvered. When you detach emotionally, you begin to see more. You see people for who they truly are, not through the lens of your triggered emotions, but through the clarity of observation. You see situations as they are, not inflated by your fears or your anger, but reduced to their true form. And in that clarity, you gain control, you make better decisions, you build better relationships, you protect your future. Think of how many things you've said that you didn't mean. Think of how many people you've hurt or who've hurt you simply because no one paused long enough to breathe, to think, to understand. Most of life's damage doesn't come from the truth. It comes from the reaction. The words said in the heat of the moment. The choices made in the fire of impulse. But when you remain calm, you interrupt that cycle. You create space between emotion and action. You create space for transformation. It's not easy to be calm when your pride is burning, to stay silent when you're being misunderstood, to walk away when everything in you wants to prove a point. That's why calm is not common. That's why emotional detachment is elite. It requires training, intention, repetition. It's the discipline of choosing your growth over your ego, your peace over your need to be right, your purpose over your impulse. People will misunderstand your calm. They'll think you're cold. They'll think you don't care. Let them. You don't owe the world a performance. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself the right to be unshaken, to protect your energy, to preserve your power. There is a silence so loud it commands every room it enters. There is a stillness so powerful it moves mountains. That's the stillness of a person who knows who they are, who doesn't need to react because they're not looking for approval, who doesn't need to prove because they've already decided their value. That kind of person moves differently. That kind of person becomes unstoppable, and make no mistake, calm is not passive calm. Calm is not weakness. Calm is full awareness. Calm is power under control. The calmest person in the room is not the least powerful. They are often the most dangerous, not because they threaten, but because they calculate, not because they dominate, because they understand. And in understanding, they lead. So how do you become that person? You train your mind to pause. You practice emotional awareness. You recognize when your emotions are trying to drive and gently take back the wheel. You allow yourself to feel without acting on every feeling. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of trying to silence it with reaction. You learn to breathe in chaos and exhale in tension. Every time you choose calm, you win. Every time you choose to observe rather than react, you grow. Every time you decide that your peace is worth more than your pride, you elevate. That is the essence of emotional mastery. That is the path to inner power. The world needs more calm leaders, more grounded souls, more people who don't mirror the madness but rise above it. Be that person. Be the calm in the storm. Be the anchor when others drift. Be the clarity in confusion. Your presence alone can shift atmospheres, not because you try to control others, but because you've learned to control yourself. And when life throws its worst at you, as it inevitably will, remember this: storms don't sink ships. Panic does. The water around you can't drown you unless you let it in. Stay calm. Stay dry. Stay focused. There will be times when you'll feel surrounded by noise, by pressure, by expectations. People will test you. Life will press on your wounds. But your calm will be your shield. Your composure will be your weapon. Your focus will be your guide. Because while others waste their energy on proving, reacting, and chasing, you will be moving in silence, in strength and certainty. And when the dust settles, when the noise fades, it will not be the loudest who are remembered. It will be the calmest, the clearest, the most disciplined, the ones who moved with grace when others moved with desperation, the ones who held their peace when it was hardest to do so. So train yourself. Practice calm, master detachment, cultivate silence. It is not a weakness. It is not a void. It is not an escape. It is the highest form of power.